Welcome to Allies or Enemies. I'm Jess.
And I am Sean, and today we are talking about Neotopia, which is designed by André Santos and Orlando Sa, and published by Arcane Wonders, who did provide us with this review copy, but the thoughts of this video are all our own.
In Neotopia, you are competitively trying to build the most advanced city in the world. It's in the year 2055, and you're using energy and technology and biofarms and population to do this. But let's look closer at how it plays. In Neotopia, you are trying to build the perfect utopian society through abstract tile placement. You start Neotopia with 3 cards and 1 element of your color on one of the 3 regions. And then, on your turn, you have 3 total actions, and each of these can be used to do one of 2 things. You can either gain a card from the display, or move 1 element from any factory to any space touching another element in either of the 2 adjacent regions. You can also take 1 bonus action a turn from tokens you collected. The purpose of all of this is to make the arrangement of the elements on the board match your cards. When you place something so that it completes a pattern, you can score your card in that region, once per turn and as long as the art is different from the current face-up card. Then play moves to the left. The game ends when the final production tile is removed, which basically means all of the elements have been produced. And then you add your largest group of connected elements in your color in each region and add that to your score. And finally, you triple your total points for the region where you score the lowest. And then the greatest architect of the future is named.
So let's start off with the components. And the big star of the show, obviously, are these guys. These awesome little circle tile things, and they're made out of plastic, and they're terrific. They bang together nicely. I almost wish that these were in a bag, because they have such a nice feel to them. I want to shake them up. There's no reason in this game to shake them up, but you'll want to, and they feel a bit like in Mandala Stones, and I thought that was a real selling point of that game as well. And these are just great.
Yeah, they feel great and they look great too. I like the icons they use. I like that the icons are also on both sides, so it doesn't matter which way you put the tiles out. And it makes it really clear, which is really important when you're trying to match it up with the cards. So I think the iconography is done really well.
There are a few of the components that I don't like as much though. The cards, for instance, they're fine and they're thick and everything. Maybe I've just been spoiled with linen finish cards now, that they just feel a little simple, but the art on them is good. They do their job well. Their patterns are really good. You can tell what they're meant to be. Also, these little score markers that are meant to represent how you're doing in the different biomes. I don't know. It's something about the tiny little cardboard chits. I just want something a little more out of these. When these are so great, everything else you're I just wish everything was to that same standard. But the main thing, the thing you're using 90% of the time is great.
Yeah, this part definitely is the highlight. These little chits that you're moving as well, they don't match up with the outlines until you flip over to the 20 side. So if you're a little bit of a stickler for wanting things to line up perfectly, do bear that in mind. It is a small little thing.
And it does make you want to succeed, because once you reach 21, it matches perfectly. And I feel like that is as much of a reward as anything else. Just to be able to match it nicely. It's like a big sigh of relief. Oh, I finally did it. Great.
But it is hard to get to 21, because I do really like the mechanic of needing to do well in each of the 3 different zones, because it's your lowest one that's the most important one. And any game that does that makes you split your attention, I find really interesting, because you do have to do that, and there's always going to be one that's harder and lagging behind, and that's really going to push you.
Yeah, because you multiply that lowest score by 3. That one's so important. And there's that balance of the different scoring types as well.
Yeah, and the scoring for each of the different zones, you can do that by playing the cards and getting the points in those zones, but also at the end you get to count up your largest contiguous group. And so those 2 combinations work really well. And a lot of the cards will naturally
get colors grouping together. So it can be tricky because if I have one that will give me a lot of points, but it's all just your color, that's going to be good for you in the end when you're adding those up.
That's why I really like this card here actually is a good example. There are some of these cards that score double if you play someone else's color and not your color. And I think that's really a clever thing as well, because then it makes you want to build other people's, because that's really the cool thing about this game is that you're forced to help people by building out their contiguous. I love contiguous and orthogonal, the official board game words. But it helps, you have to kind of help them build out their little contiguous zone in order to score points for these. There's also a thing where you can't put two of the same artwork on top of each other. And that is, I think, a way bigger hurdle than we expected it to be.
Yeah, because there'd often be times when you are kind of setting yourself up for another turn, but you might play a card between then. And I would be so ready, but realize, oh no, you just played the same kind of card I was going to do.
And they've got those cards, kind of how they're grouped together too, is that they're kind of similar, like they're similar shapes and similar colors for the similar card backs. So it stops you really from being able to combo in one zone, which is probably for the best because it makes you go out to those other zones as well. But so there's quite a few things to keep in mind. Also, just where you're putting out things too, because you have to take them off of these little, I don't know what they're called, spokes or whatever. And as you take them off of here, as soon as this clears, you refill everything from this hub in the middle. But you can take them off from either side. And you're also, as you take them off, obviously you're leaving things for the other player. So you don't want to leave them stuff that you know that they want. But if you leave them one, they can just take that off and clear off these, and now they've got access to 4 new ones. So that's a really interesting part of the strategy too.
Yeah, and because it is divided into 3s, it is interesting. You always have 2 spokes to choose from as well. So that does keep it interesting. But it plays, I'd say, quite differently depending on the number of players. And so because whenever you're playing cards, for the most part, you're going to be putting down tokens using more than one color. And so you're usually having to factor in, I'm probably helping somebody else out, which makes it a more interesting game at 4 players, because you're going to be more likely to be putting out their tokens and wanting to make sure you're not giving them too much of an edge. Whereas at 2 players, there's going to be 2 neutral colors. So those ones are a little bit more safe to play. You don't mind playing those because you're not giving the other person points.
It really does feel like it's kind of meant to be a 4-player game, because also like it moves super, super fast. Your turn is you do 3 actions, and those actions are either take a card or play a thing down. And that's it, because even fulfilling cards is actually a free thing you can do. And so you do those very quickly, generally on a turn. So it moves around quickly, but it's just nice having more people like messing with it. I feel like the puzzle's more fun when there's 4 people adding stuff to it and making it a little bit harder for you to set up what you want to do.
And yeah, and you have to use those bonus tokens probably a little bit more, like the ones that make you build on the outside, which you don't have as much need as at a 2-player game just because you're not filling up the board as much. But it goes so fast for each player's turn generally, and the game itself, I'm always a little bit surprised when the end comes.
Yeah, this is like a 25-minute game for us, like at 2 players. This is a very quick game. But let's move on to a few of the negative things. So one of them is the theme is basically not there. This is an abstract puzzle. It claims that it's about future city building. I defy anyone to look at this and guess that is the theme, because these do not look like buildings. There's no part of this and it doesn't feel like it's future city building. You're just kind of doing a thing, which is fine. I do kind of wish that maybe they'd made it, I don't know, just something that made more sense. Like maybe you're building out flower gardens. Maybe that's been overdone, but just something that felt like you were doing that thing. But it doesn't really get in the way. It's just not, if you want a thematic game, this is not very thematic.
The theme is pretty abstracted, but I think that tends to be the case for abstract games. It's in the name of being an abstract game. But I think one of the challenges is I do appreciate that each action is really simple in terms of what you can do, but it can feel a little bit samey after a few games. And I think part of it too is the puzzle is just more interesting at more players, and we played a lot at 2. But as soon as you put more spanners in the works and everything becomes more challenging, it becomes a more interesting puzzle to solve. So who do you think this is for? I think it works really well for pretty new gamers because of the ease of being able to explain how to play. I think it's really intuitive in terms of just those simple actions and being able to grab only from the spokes in which the field touches, and all of that is nice to be able to easily get started.
And it's like you say, you can teach folks this game. So this is kind of one of those puzzly games that you can play with family in the holidays and play it fairly quickly.
Yeah, and I think people will like playing it again too as they discover the bonus tokens, because that can feel really satisfying when you can pull off a really strong combo, and it is rare enough that it still makes you feel like clever when you manage to do it. And it would definitely be more for people who are playing on the 3 or 4 player count level.
Yeah, you really want to be playing this with a full count.
Yeah, as opposed to if you're only playing with 2, it definitely shines at 3 or 4 players.
It's a light abstract game, and it's going to be for that sort of audience, an audience that wants kind of a light tile placey but competitive game, but also is perfectly happy with a really abstract theme, but with really nice. Like, that's one of the selling points, I think, for this being kind of a game for new gamers, is you think that this looks interesting and you like to make this sound a lot, then maybe give it a look. And that is it. That's Neotopia.
Thanks so much for watching. Please let us know in the comments if you've played Neotopia or what favorite abstract strategy game you've played recently. And as usual, please like, subscribe, and hopefully we'll see you next time for another game.